comprising 1,127,000 tons of maize, 220,000 metric tons of wheat, and 374 metric tons of wheat flour were imported by the private sector for commercial purposes. To date, 1,000 maize import permits have been issued to import 5 million metric tons. The government of Zimbabwe will continue to monitor the volume in terms of imports, stocks at millers, import prices, and the import sources in order to eliminate arbitrage opportunities. The 2024-2025 summer season plan aims to increase production of cereals to 3.2 million metric tons from the 744,000 metric tons produced during the 2023-2024 summer season. The overall production volumes of major crops are expected to increase by 340%. Cabinet wishes to advise that preliminary data shows that 99% of the targeted maize area for the 2024-2025 season had been planted. The Zimbabwe Statistics led the government-wide first round in terms of crops, livestock, and fisheries assessment, which is now being finalized and will reveal more accurately the extent of the crop planting. Under the Presidential Input Scheme, the farming sector has achieved 11.4 million plots from a targeted 9.5 million plots, which translates to a 20% above target and 16% above the 2023-2024 season performance of 9.8 million plots. The total planted area under cotton is 203,875 hectares, reflecting a 40% increase from the 145,000 hectares recorded in the 2023-2024 season. Regarding tobacco, 127,000 growers have registered for the 2024-2025 season, reflecting a 10% increase from the 115,000 growers registered at the same time in the 2023-2024 season. Of the registered growers, 92% are participating under contract modalities. Under the Tobacco Food Security Initiatives, all tobacco merchants are supporting their contracted tobacco farmers with maize and sorghum as well as the other inputs. The total planted area for tobacco is 132,000, which translates to 16% above the 2023-2024 season in terms of performance. Cabinet considered and approved measures to address challenges in the formal business environment, which were presented by the Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion, Honorable Professor Mthuli Ncube. Following the presentation of the monetary policy statement by the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe on the 6th of February 2025, Cabinet observed a number of factors that had negatively affected the economy and has therefore introduced a cocktail of short-term and long-term interventions aimed at addressing the challenges in the economy and also providing the requisite support to micro, to small to medium scale enterprises. In broad terms, the government of Zimbabwe seeks to bring all businesses into the tax bracket and to enhance the effectiveness of the foreign exchange market. In the long term, the government of Zimbabwe will address the business environment in order to streamline fees, charges, and to minimize the duplication of work by various government agencies, as well as to improve and capacitate in terms of power generation. Such an environment will also enable MSMEs to graduate into formal businesses. Under the short-term measures, the use of electronic money will now be compulsory for all businesses and shall be achieved through the following: the introduction of a compulsory tax payment system to ensure that every eligible taxpayer complies with the tax legislation, the establishment of a domestic interagency team to ensure informal sector is in compliance with the tax legislation, and an introduction of a framework which will ensure that all vendor licensing by local authorities is done in consultation with central government. It will henceforth be mandatory that all vendors are promptly issued with point-of-sale machines, and that as part of the requirements, they will now have bank accounts upon registration or licensing. Cabinet further endorsed the refinement of the foreign exchange management system, the reduction of foreign currency retention level for exporters from 75% to 70%, the reduction in bank charges and minimum deposit interest rates. Under medium-term solutions, Cabinet has further adopted the following medium-term measures to ease the cost of doing business by streamlining processes, fees and charges, as well as duplication of work by government agencies to reduce the turnaround and costs to business. Ensure strict compliance with the indigenization and empowerment legislation, which provides for certain areas such as the reserved sectors. To enforce the procurement of goods and services from local producers and suppliers in order to support the local industry, and to expedite the construction of power plants and upgrading the distribution network in order to ensure the availability of electricity, to incentivize the use of alternative sources of energy, and to expedite social protection coverage to the informal sector. Government has also adopted the following short to medium term measures aimed at supporting micro, small to medium enterprises to formalize their operations: the establishment of designated workspace, the creation of a favorable regulatory environment, simplified taxes and rates, the strengthening provision of business development support, enforcement of the ban on second-hand goods, and the engagement of players in all sectors of the economy. Cabinet considered and adopted the proposed doctrine of Zimbabwe's foreign relations and international cooperation as presented by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, Honorable Professor Amon Murwira. The doctrine provides guidelines for Zimbabwe's foreign policy based on His Excellency the President Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa's decision on the country's international relations in compliance with the Constitution of Zimbabwe. The doctrine also aims to guarantee the integrity, dignity, and prosperity of Zimbabwe through upholding the principles of mutual respect, mutual benefit, and mutual responsibility among all sovereign nations. The doctrine is founded on parameters or points of reference that serve to guide foreign policy development and application. These as follows. Zimbabwe is a friend to all and an enemy to none, leaving no one and no place behind. Nyika inovakwa nevene vayo, ilizwe lakiwa ngavanikazi valo. A country is built by its own people. Zimbabwe is open for business. Chimurenga chepfungwa, umvukela wengondo, the liberation of the mind, and Zimbabwe will forever be a sovereign and independent state. The doctrine shall guide the approach of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Trade in its implementation of Zimbabwe's foreign policy, whose ultimate goal is to have a society that is free, democratic, prosperous, with people leading happy and fulfilling lives. Cabinet considered and approved the preparations for the 21st February commemorations report as presented by the Minister of Local Government and Public Works in his capacity as acting chairman of the Cabinet Committee on State Occasions and National Monuments, Honorable Engineer Daniel Garo. The 2025 National Youth Day celebrations will be held at Baba Field Stadium in Bulawayo Metropolitan Province from the 20th to the 21st of February 2025, in line with the thrust of the Second Republic to hold national events on a rotational basis. As a national holiday, duly proclaimed and gazetted, the event will provide a platform for young people to interact with His Excellency the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, to showcase youth talent, businesses, and contributions to national development, to raise awareness on the dangers of drug and substance abuse, and to increase awareness, commitment, and investment in youth development initiatives, programs, and projects. Running under the theme, Empower Youth, Secure the Future, the main event on the 21st of February 2025 is poised to attract a total of 20,000 youths drawn from the country's 9 provinces, with the rest of the youths in all the provinces following proceedings in real time at designated vocational training centers and institutions of higher learning. All members of the youth in all the 10 provinces will be part of the proceedings. Foreign visitors, including ministers and youth council representatives from selected African countries, will be expected to attend the event. The pre-celebrations on the 20th of February 2025 will attract an estimated total of 5,000 youths drawn from schools and institutions of higher and tertiary education within Bulawayo Metropolitan Province and the nearby provinces. Highlights of the day will include a sporting and cultural fiesta, youth exhibitions, a clean-up campaign program, a community outreach program on drug and substance, and the Iquiba Nanga Gota Expo, by the First Lady of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Amayo Cecilia Mnangagwa. Logistical preparations are already underway, with a total of 250 buses earmarked for equitable distribution to the country's provinces. Additionally, 15 shuttle buses will be availed to all constituencies in the Bulawayo Metropolitan Province for a successful 20th February 2025 program. Cabinet received and noted the report on the SADC and the East African Community Joint Summit on the Democratic Republic of Congo, which was presented by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, Honorable Professor Eamon Mruira. The joint summit was held on the 8th of February 2025 in the United Republic of Tanzania and was co-chaired by His Excellency the President, Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, as the chairperson of Southern Africa Development Community, and His Excellency Dr. William Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya, and also the chairperson of the East African Community. The summit called for a cessation of conflict in order to pave way for peace and development. Measures to entrench peace will be implemented through a ministerial task force from the two sub-regions of Africa acting in unison. The heads of state and government of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Kenya, South Africa, Somalia, Rwanda, Uganda, the United Republic of Tanzania, Zambia, and Zimbabwe attended the summit. Burundi was represented by the Prime Minister, whilst Angola, Malawi, and South Sudan were represented by the ministers responsible for foreign affairs. Madagascar was represented by the Minister of the Armed Forces. The joint summit deliberated on the peace and security situation in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, following an escalation of conflict. A joint summit reaffirmed solidarity with the people of the Democratic Republic of Congo and committed to safeguarding the independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity of the DRC, as well as its sustainable peace, security, and development. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister, for presenting to today's cabinet highlights. I now invite questions from members of the press, over to you, colleagues. We have three questions. Then we'll ask the ministers to respond. Then we have the last round of 3 questions again. The ministers will respond.
I think you are the
Yes.
Happy to.
My name is Abigail Tembo from ZBC News. My first question is directed to the Minister of Agriculture. You mentioned that the 2024-2025 summer season plan aims to increase cereal production to 3.2 million metric tons. What strategies are in place to achieve this target, and how will government support farmers in meeting this goal? Then my second question, directed to the Minister of Finance. What are the expected benefits of reducing the foreign currency exchange level for exporters? You mentioned from 75 to 70%. Then, to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, how the government balance its open for business approach with the need to protect national interest and sovereignty? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Chief Secretary. My name is Mokuze Chimwele from the Herald. My question is directed to the Minister of Foreign Affairs and portrait. I just wanted to find out how is the new foreign service doctrine going to complement the current foreign policy thrust that seeks to advance economic diplomacy, and which also says Zimbabwe is an enemy to none and a friend to all.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Okay. Thank you, Chief Secretary. We'll start perhaps with the Minister of Finance in terms of the questions that have been asked, also by Abigail Temple. Over to you, Professor Ngube.
Thank you very much. Let me thank Abigail Temple for the question. This is pertaining to the reduction of retention from 75 to 70%. What does this extra 5%, what benefits will it yield for the market or all the players? Basically, this extra 5% that will be surrendered, for example, is surrendered for ZIC. It's not as if it's a tax, it's a swap from US dollars to ZIC for the sellers and the exporters. Secondly, this 5% will be used to bolster the reserve accumulation profit. Colleagues will agree with me that it's important for us to continue to build our reserves, our gold reserves, hard currency reserves, so that we can continue to strengthen our currency and keep improving the import cover, so that we've adequate foreign currency for whoever is analyzing the factors driving the currency. So reserve accumulation is our target, and we're happy to report that so far we've almost $550 million US dollars worth of reserves, and this will go a long way in signaling the stability in the currency. We want to do more. If ever there is anything left of this 5% that we would want to use for reserve accumulation, this will be sold into the market, into the willing buyer, willing seller market, and also the rules for foreign exchange determination have been loosened, and so that's sacred. Really, the aim is to deal with reserve accumulation, but there could be other, external obligations which require foreign currency. This also will go towards that, and I think that's a good thing to be able to meet our external liabilities, external demands, at the same time build reserves, and any remainder then can be disposed into the market by the central bank. Thank you.
The second question I will hand over in terms of the doctrine, how it will benefit our country to Professor Eamon Mruya. Then I'll respond to the last question.
Okay. There are two questions asked.
Yeah.
So I will take them.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Abigail. You asked about our open for business approach and how it dovetails with the protection of sovereignty. I just want to start by saying that there's no contradiction between open for business and the protection of sovereignty, because the biggest threat to sovereignty is poverty. Now, I want to just go back to say what is Zimbabwe's national objective. The prime objective of Zimbabwe, if you look at it in Chapter 2 of the Constitution, is for us to build a free, democratic society where people are prosperous and they lead happy and fulfilling lives. This is the national objective of Zimbabwe, so that we are born free, happy, prosperous, and fulfilling lives. We live up to adulthood in the same vein, happy, prosperous, fulfilling lives, and we die in a dignified way. So it means that's a sovereign country. So the open for business doctrine or a doctrinal point by His Excellency is to say business activity leads to this prosperity that we are talking about. And open for business by us, and by all people who want to work with us from outside. So, but all this is done within the laws and regulations of Zimbabwe. And just to contextualize it in a more interesting way, this doctrine has got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points of reference. The first one, we own our country. The country is built by its own people. Next, the president says, we are friends to all and enemy to none in our pursuit of our national goals. And we are open for business, of course, so that that business activity that leads us to that prosperity, to that happiness, and fulfilling life that we've been talking about. But while we are doing this development, we are uplifting our people from poverty, leaving no place and no one behind. But at the same time, when we are interacting in the international sphere, we are saying Zimbabwe believes in the equality of sovereign nations, and the leaving no one and no place behind applies both domestically and internationally. Because as you know, foreign policy is a reflection of your domestic policy. How you want to live is how you want to interact with people in the outside world. And then we say, we approach the world with liberated minds, not enslaved minds, getting rid of colonial thought and making sure that we ourselves are ourselves. It is very important. Before you interact with anybody, you have to be yourself first. And then we say at the end of the day, Zimbabwe will forever be a sovereign and independent state. So all these variables, which are 6, if you want to say x, 1 plus x, 2 plus x, 3 plus x, 4 plus x, 5 plus x, 6, all this is hyperspace for decision making. So while a person is interacting with the foreign environment, they have to take into consideration all these 6 guidelines by the president. That, first of all, you must know that you are building your country. With yourself, with others, but building your country. You are leading. You are a friend to all and an enemy to none. It doesn't mean that you cannot be hated as a country. But it's not you who hate. You are hated. It's not us. Us, we dangle friendship. We don't dangle hate as a country. So we are friends to all and an enemy to none. And open for business, and leaving no place and no one behind, and while we are thinking, and at the same time protecting our sovereignty. Because first of all this, as you can see, there's no contradiction between eradication of poverty through business and sovereignty. Because poverty is a threat, and I want to finish by saying poverty is a threat to sovereignty. Poor people normally end up compromising their sovereignty. So this is a complete doctrine. Now, I want to then say, how does this doctrine advance Zimbabwe thrust? You know, in the hierarchy of things, we have the national constitution, which is the guide to the nation. And then the president, as the head of state and the state and government, and commander-in-chief of the defense forces, he then interprets that constitution and gives guidelines on how he wants this country as an entity to interact with the outside world. These guidelines are called the doctrine. We will then take that doctrine and make specific policies for this country to function. And then we'll do strategic plans to implement them. And we'll do implementation plans so that we can walk the talk. So this is the whole hierarchy of things. So the doctrine is what we can call a super, in quotes, policy, which is the main direction in which this country goes. So basically, this then helps us advance Zimbabwe's specific foreign policy actions. It guides us on how we interact with the external environment without confusion. Because sometimes we have a problem of policy reversals, whereby a person talks and say, oh, when you have a doctrine, no confusion. This is the issue that we are trying to remove. No retraction of statements. Once Zimbabwe has spoken based on the doctrine, we have spoken. No noise, no kubukura. We move in a very harmonic fashion, coordinated fashion. A person in Geneva talks the same thing. In New York tells the same. They don't have to phone home. They have to look at the doctrine and find out whether the decision that they are going to make is within the parameters that Zimbabwe set itself to do. So this is basically for us to understand that documentation of the president's thought makes it possible for us to talk in unison, I think.
Okay, thanks Prof. Muruira and Professor Ntulingwe for the responses. Abigail, you also asked about the increase in terms of the number of plots and the agricultural activities that are taking place in Zimbabwe. And that there's been a huge jump in terms of agricultural activities, in terms of the hectarage that has been planted in Zimbabwe, from a targeted 9.5 million plots to 11.4 million plots under the presidential Intwasa or Pfumbudza program. I want to emphasize, Abigail, that the growth in terms of the agricultural sector and also an increase in terms of the productivity in the farms in the entirety of the agricultural sector, be it in terms of cereals, be it in terms of tobacco, be it in terms of cotton, is not an accident or a miracle, but that it is a deliberate strategy and plan of action in terms of implementation of modalities in order to achieve food security in terms of the constitutional requirements. Some of the interventions also include climate proofing in terms of agriculture. They also include a deliberate effort by the government of Zimbabwe under the leadership of President Edin Mnangagwa to extend in terms of advisory services, in terms of agricultural extension workers, to give advisory services to all farmers, be it commercial or communal farmers. And at the same time, it is also part of His Excellency the President's strategy in order to extend and expand on irrigation facilities, the capacitation of agricultural extension workers in terms of smart farming methodology in order to capacitate the agriculture information management system and also the digitalization of each and every specific ward in terms of water information management systems, livestock information management systems, the monitoring and evaluation in terms of digital methodology, in terms of assessment of crops, in terms of ensuring that we achieve and the necessary interventions are also put in place at the right time. All these are implementation modalities. But at the same time, I want to expand on a number of initiatives that have been put in place in order to support agricultural activities. Yes, we have now 10,600 dams, and the irrigation conference, which was officially opened by His Excellency the President in order to expand on irrigation capacitation, is also part of His Excellency the President's strategy in order to achieve food security and also to counter the climate change challenges that have been affecting the whole region. We identified as government enablers in terms of an implementation tracker, in terms of modality, the financing part, which has usually been done by the government of Zimbabwe through the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development, in terms of supporting farmers across the country but at the same time, the irrigation facilities expansion, which is also currently underway, with now a total irrigable area this season of 185,197 hectares. In terms of water, I've already highlighted that we continue to expand in terms of the construction of new damming infrastructure, which also includes now the Gwai, Shangani, and at the same time many other damming infrastructure projects that are currently taking place. The mechanization is very key in order to support agricultural production going forward. Now, with a total population of 15,308 tractors, I'm sure you've participated at a number of functions where His Excellency the President has harnessed the engagement and re-engagement strategy in order to capacitate the agricultural sector, which also includes the mechanization part coming from the Belarusian agreement, with now another additional 9,230 disc harrows, 11,212 plows, and an additional 313 combined harvesters, and many other machines and many other deals that we have secured through the engagement and re-engagement strategy, but also in terms of local capacitation in terms of the mechanization of the agricultural sector, the John Deere facility, the banking facilities in order for farmers to access agricultural implements. Seed facilities and the capacitation has also been key in terms of the enablers that support agricultural sector, and also now fertilizer. And what we've been focusing on now is an import substitution strategy in order to utilize innovation, including the transformation and the utilization of the coal to fertilizer plant, which is currently underway. But at the same time, capacitation and resource mobilization in terms of capacitating the local industry, which also includes most institutions under the IDC. Chemical supplies, power, which is now part of the input strategy, in that the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Energy has got a modality which allows farmers to be able to access power and pay after the agricultural season when they've been paid. But also at the same time, fuel facilities which farmers can access, markets which have also supported the pre-planting pricing of the maize, traditional grains, soya beans, farmer payments, capacity building, insurance, policy and regulations, coordination under a whole of government approach, monitoring and evaluation, and now with the securitization of the land in terms of the title deeds program, which is currently underway. You'll see more and more in terms of an increase in terms of cereal production, and more in terms of lines of credit, and at the same time the growth of the agricultural sector. The revision of agroecological regions was also a game changer, in that it now allows each and every farmer to be able to access applications on their mobile phones in terms of soil management, in terms of planning and planting within the region. All in all, we have about 21 enablers that have helped us as a government in order for us to achieve food security. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ministers, for responding to those questions. Let us move to the last round of questions. If there are any. Yes.
My question is to the Minister of Finance. Has there been any consideration of the adoption of the monocurrency to deal with the distortions that are in the market and what the businesses are grappling with?
Thank you very much. Any? Yes.
Mine is directed to the Minister of Youth. At this commemorations that will be held, are there any opportunities which will be provided for young people to showcase their talents, businesses, and contributions to national development? And also, I understand that there will be a drug and substance abuse outreach program. I understand the government has put in place several mechanisms to curb the drug and substance abuse program. Are we making any inroads in as far as curbing this scourge? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other question? Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chief Secretary. The first question is to Professor Tulinyuru in terms of the adoption of a monocurrency modality. Over to you, Professor Tuli.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a privilege for the question. I hope I got the name right. Was there any consideration for adoption of the monocurrency? That is your question. No, not as yet. The reason being that you need certain conditions to be in place first before you adopt monocurrency. First of all, we will need to be sure that we have adequate foreign reserves to be able to defend the domestic currency received if ever it came under any speculative attacks. There are certain rules and benchmarks around the world, such as 6 months import cover, for example. So they are able to then cover 6 months of imports without any further inflows. That's how that much works. So but really it's about being able to defend the currency when it's under speculative attack. But secondly, we need to make progress on the extent of our external arrears, which obviously also pose a risk to the value of many currencies. We've got debt arrears or high indebtedness externally. You want to that can pose risk to your currency, risk to your reserve position. So again, we want to make sure that our arrears periods program has traction, and we make progress towards clearing those arrears. Because what that will do, it will then allow us to access what we call balance of payment support, so that we have support in terms of credit lines from IFIs, outside international financial institutions, to support our reserve position, again to deal with the demand by importers, but also to be able to defend the currency. So we need a few things in place for us to do that. I must say that on the other fronts where we're doing the right things, such as maintaining basically a tight monetary policy, but also being able to maintain a prudent and tight fiscal policy. The direction of the current account as well is in the right direction, in the sense that we don't have any current account deficits. On the contrary, we have current account surpluses. So all those are ingredients towards creating the right environment for foreign currency to eventually be introduced, but we're not there yet. Thank you very much.
Now, the second two questions from Abigail to the Minister of Youth. Are there any opportunities during the conference and also on the day of commemorations? And are we making any inroads in the fight against drug and substance abuse? Over to you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I also want to thank Abigail Temple for a very, very important question. This is going to be the first national youth event that is going to be different from the previous ones that we used to have. Why I say so is, number one, we have invited quite a number of youth entrepreneurs, and they are going to be showcasing their talents, businesses, and also we also want them our youth to see how they are doing their businesses, and to also want them to be learning and to get ideas on how to start their projects or either businesses. And at the same time, we've invited different organizations that are going to provide the different programs, so that we make sure that we are not leaving anyone and no place behind. Secondly, you asked about a question on drug break inroads. Allow me to say we are quite impressive with the programs that the government has put in place. Number one, if you can see the way people were committing crimes in terms of selling drugs in the streets, it has reduced, because there's a lot of programs, awareness campaigns, a lot of what we call a whole of society approach working with the government. So we want to say, as we are going forward, we are going to see that the reduction on the abuse of drugs is going to increase, because it is our as a team. It is our let me say, it is our mandate as a team, the society and the government, to work together so that we fight and reduce this drug scourge. But allow me to say, as a ministry, we are also going to be moving around the 10 provinces with different programs of drug awareness campaigns. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ministers, for responding to those questions. We've come to the end of today's post-cabinet press briefing. Thank you very much. We meet next week.
Oh, Chief, Magwenda.